This lesson we're going to cover getting started in vcarve Pro for our clock project. I'm going to go to the Start menu and just type in vcarve, and this should come up. We'll launch software. Once you get this up, it's going to ask you to create a new file. And first thing we want to do is establish our material. So that in the job setup here, the default for mine right now is a full sheet of plywood. We don't need it that big. We're going to be making our clock out of a 10-inch by 5.5 inch tall, and the material thickness is going to be 3/4. We're going to leave our Z0 right here. We'll talk more about that later on. Okay, so this is our canvas for us to design our clock on. I'm going to talk a little bit about layers. So we're going to go in here to layers, and we're going to add a new layer. And let's name that layer border. Alright. Going to make it active by clicking on it. You'll see that it becomes bold. Alright, we're going to go over here and grab our rectangle tool, and I'm going to click and drag, and we want a rectangle just to represent an outline where we wouldn't want to put any work. So if we want a 1/2 inch border and our board is 10 inches long, we're going to make it 9 by 4.5 and hit apply. Now we're going to close that out, and if we select this by just making a box around it and we come down, we can get the program to center it up nicely for us. Where am I? Here we go. And we'll just have it put it right in the center so we can align it to our material. Okay, I don't want to work on the border right now. It's layer, because I want to be able to turn that on and off. So I'm going to add a new layer, and this is going to be my text layer. And let's make that the active layer. You can see that this is my active layer. So on our clock project, generally we're going to put our name or somebody else's name or maybe a sports team. So let's just take a look at how to add text to your file. Come over here and grab the text tool, and there are all your font choices like any other program. We'll talk a little bit in detail about what you choose for a font. Some fonts are going to carve better than others. So just pick a font that you like, and let's type in some text. Maybe you need to make a present for your dad. So once that text comes in, we can then manipulate it in a number of ways. So can move it around. You can scale it up. You could rotate it. Any number of things to do. Alright, so this program is going to allow us to create toolpaths to carve out what we want to say on our clock. So I'm going to make this a little bit, I'm going to hit the undo button a couple of times and make this a little bit smaller, because we're going to need some room for our clock, which we'll talk a little bit about as well. If I'm not happy with that, I can edit that by grabbing my text tool again. Oops. And let's say I wanted that to be 2 lines. Can edit it, move it around. Let's apply a toolpath to that. So the toolpaths are hidden out over here. This little thumbtack will allow us to lock out our tools, which is helpful. And there are all kinds of tool paths we can apply. I'm going to start with the vcarve toolpath. In order for it to do anything, we need to have this selected or highlighted. So we're going to grab our toolpath, and then we got to decide what kind of bit we're going to use. So under the selection, for this purpose, we're just going to go with a 60-degree vcarve bit. Talk about these later as well. Okay, so it's got this selected. We're going to take the flat depth off and just let it do its thing. Down in the name, I like to include what bit we're using so I can remember. So I'm going to have vcarve 60 degree and hit calculate, and it's going to create a toolpath. It's going to bring up this window, and it's going to allow us to take a look at what that's going to be like when it carves it out. All right, you can zoom in a little bit. You can add some fill color if you want. See what it looked like if you were to paint it in green. You can even decide what kind of wood you want. I think we're going to be working with maple. Of course they don't have, oh, they do have maple. There we go. You got the grain going in the wrong direction. So that's what it looks like to add a little text. Next we're going to talk about cutting out our clock pocket. Alright, so the